I think what I'm looking at here, Chelsea, is a couple of things. Number one is what we saw from Tyrese Maxey in Game 5, is that able to be replicated? Because it took everything in the Sixers' power and Maxey losing his mind for them to win that game. The Knicks had it. Like, they had it. What were they up? 6 with 30 seconds to play in that game? And then Maxey got like 7 points in 30 seconds, sent it to overtime. The Knicks should have won that game. So I also think that when you look back at their head-to-head meetings this season, in the last 9 games they have played, the Knicks have won 6 of those games. So Knicks getting points, it's above the key number of 3. I know we don't use key numbers a whole lot in basketball, but 3 and a hook is significant. I'll take New York tonight in Philly.
Okay, so what about our angle of superstars on the brink of elimination? Because usually you would point to this game and you say, oh, Joel Embiid. No, I'm talking about Tyrese Maxey. His points prop is set for 26.5. Of course, he's coming off that monster game last time around where he scored 46. Should be noted that he also played 52 minutes. That game also went to overtime, but still, I feel like this is somebody who has certainly grown when it comes to his confidence. And I feel like he will not be somebody who is going down without a fight. We saw that last game. Everybody thought this game was over. Tyrese Maxey said, nuh-uh, I'm going to jack up a 3. You're going to foul me. I'm going to make the free throw. And then I'm going to shoot a logo 3 and actually make it. So, Jenks, talk me off Tyrese Maxey over 26.5 points tonight.
Oh, well, the only thing I would say is that there's a possibility that everything runs through Joel Embiid. I feel like that's your only sabotage factor. Maxey's great, but clearly the number one option is Joel Embiid. So if he has a monster game and they keep feeding him on the inside and he gets hot and he can get out from outside too, then all of a sudden that will reduce the amount of touches that Maxey gets. So I don't hate it, but I wonder how much they'll go back to him compared to Embiid. That's the only thing that I think could affect your bet.
Well, here's the thing about Embiid. Isn't it hard to trust him when he's tired? And look at this game last time around. Went to overtime. Joel Embiid was not the guy down the stretch. He had a decent game, scored 19, but still he played 48 minutes. Like, that's a lot for Joel Embiid. So I think if I were to trust one of the two superstars, wouldn't it still be Maxey in this position? Like, I understand that Joel Embiid, you're right. If he can get to the free throw line, obviously you go that route. But the Knicks have also done a good job of shutting him down in the fourth quarter.
I would be more apt to look at Jalen Brunson. He's gone off in this series. I think he had 40 last time out, and no one talked about that because the Knicks blew the lead. But they have really leaned on him. And the thing is, even when he's not being efficient, he's still putting up a ton of points. So, and a lot of that has to do with Julius Randle not playing. But if I'm going player prop and you talk about big-time players, it's not an elimination spot for the Knicks. But yeah, it's a low total, too.
Feels
but
like.
Yeah, it does feel that way. But I think I would go with Brunson. I would trust that play a little more than Tyrese Maxey. But then again, when you talk about the Knicks scores, that's probably going to be a super high number. I don't know. I'm not going to talk you off of it, but I do worry about the Embiid angle. Even though I know he's not 100%, he's still the guy on that Sixers offense, despite Maxey going off.
Yeah, for sure. But you're right. You are paying a premium on Jalen Brunson. His player prop is 33.5.
Yeah, no
So
thanks.
he can have a really good game and still not go over that. But doesn't it feel like it's not an elimination game for the Knicks, but it still feels like a very important game? Like, this is not a game that they're just going to throw away. Every single game this series has been very intense. But here's the other angle I wanted to talk about for just a second. When both of these teams are coming off overtime, where multiple guys are playing over 40 minutes, Tyrese Maxey played 52 minutes last game.
God.
Do you think this affects the total? Like, this total is going down. It's 198.5. Do you think this game is a little lower scoring simply because of these guys maybe being a little worn out? It's kind of interesting how the Knicks have a little bit of that as well in Jalen Brunson. It wasn't supposed to be Jalen Brunson like a few years ago who was going to be a superstar of a team, but here he is leading the Knicks. So now the big question is, what happens tonight? This has been a really exciting series, and for me, it's hard to pick a side, but what happens? Do you think the Sixers can steal this game?
I do. Yeah, I felt before the series started, it felt to me like a 7-game series. I thought they were very even teams, despite one team being a 2 seed, one being a 7. The East was kind of weird this year. Everyone behind Boston, you could just kind of move them around and say this is the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seed, and I would argue with you. It just happened to be where it ended on the last day of the season. So I think they're really even. I thought the Knicks were actually a little bit underrated coming in terms of being an initial dog in the betting market, and then it kind of flipped back and was kind of even when the series started. It just feels like a 7-game series to me. I think the Sixers are going to find a way to win tonight, and then we'll go back to New York on Saturday. One thing to look for tonight and Saturday as we play totals and overs and unders is the fatigue factor. They're coming off in overtime. We're not at the point anymore where there's multiple days in between games. Game 7s, historically, if we get there Saturday, are lower scoring anyway because teams are tight early in the game. I think this is a war of attrition. And for the Sixers, they got to worry about Embiid. Does he have 90 good minutes left in his body in this series? I'm not sure if he does. The silver lining for them, of course, though, is Maxey never seems to get tired, so he'll play whatever they need him to.
Yeah, we need the equivalent of wife swap, but for cities. Jenks, I have something that's kind of tangent, but also a segue to maybe some baseball. We'll talk some baseball.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was at Lowe's, and there was this guy in full Yankees gear that was, yelling at one of the workers. And one of the workers was like, I don't know how you do things up there, but we will get to it when we get to it. Because he was mad because they weren't, being speedy enough. But I was like, that's Yankees people for you. Jenks, Yankees squaring off with the Orioles today. Yankees favored -135 behind Carlos Rodon, who's been pretty good this year. 2-1 with a 2.48 ERA, squaring off with, we're not quite sure. I think it might be Kyle Bradish, but it's still listed as, to be decided. Baltimore, as of now, +115, total of 9.5 runs. So, Jenks, we know my rule. I don't bet against the Orioles. Will you be doing that?
Well, I would. It depends on who starts. So if it's John Means, they just activated John Means off the IL. If he goes, I feel better about the Yankees. But Kyle Bradish, based on what we saw last season, he was very good, 12-7, ERA of only 2.83, and his recent rehab appearance where he was in AAA looked really good, scattered 5 hits over 5 innings, allowed 1 run, struck out 6. Then I think if you have Bradish on the mound, the better arm than Means, and you get the Orioles at +115, then that would be my play. So it depends on who starts for the O's.
I feel like it never depends on who starts for the O's, though. Haven't we seen this story before where their starters aren't even that good and they will still somehow win the game?
Yeah, that's true.
We saw it with the other day with Dean Kramer. Remember? We were saying, well, he doesn't have good numbers. Doesn't seem to matter, much to the chagrin of Juan Soto. Did you see that drama? They had a staring contest.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Juan Soto was like, ooh, I got a home run off of him. And then Orioles fans were saying, well, who won the game?